Okay, I think we are going live now. I'm just going to refresh the page just to make sure that everything is going well. Hello, everybody. Yes, part of the accountability group for this month, we have a special guest for today, Dr. Cathy Hunter. She is part of the mini series for the accountability group. So, super happy to have her here. Yes, so just a little bit of an introduction so we can start this off well. And I just want to make sure that the live is okay. There we go. I see it in live. Yes, so Dr. Hunter has been an actively practicing chiropractor for 27 years and now owner of Hunter Holistics Topical CBD. She's about to release her first book, 5 Degrees to Your Future, as well as host of the podcast 5 Degrees to Your Future. So, Dr. Cathy Hunter, thank you and welcome to the new Dynamo U Facebook group.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, we already had the opportunity to speak because we had a podcast together or we had a chat. Uh,
Interaction. Yes.
yeah, absolutely. And then you were practicing because you said you practice your trade from home. Maybe
Now, yes.
if you could just give like a little bit of a background as to what you actually do, and then I'm super interested about your book. But first, yeah, let us know what it is that you specifically do.
Sure. Well, way back when I was in high school, I was starting to do running in terms of long distance, cross country, spring, winter track, and I loved it. But I don't know, I think they were running me about 67 miles a week. And my little body growing, I grew 6 inches in a year and a half.
Oh,
And my body was twisted. And so I'm running and pounding, and all of a sudden my knees and my hips were horrific, burning. I couldn't run, and that was my life. That was my everything. And the coaches freaked out, and they took me to a doctor, and they did x-rays. They're looking for pathology, something wrong, and there was nothing there.
mm,
And they said, maybe it's just in your head. You can't handle the pressure of being this top runner. And it was like my world collapsed.
wow.
And my brother at the time was seeing a chiropractor, and he had been in a car accident, and I didn't understand. I was just about 15. And he said, "You should see my chiropractor." So I went to the chiropractor, and he actually listened when I said, "Oh, yeah, I grew 6 inches, and I'm having these growing pains, and my body's twisted." And he had me look in a mirror, and he said, "Your hips are kind of one way, and your body's the other way." And he helped fix me, and I'm still an avid runner today, pain free, thank goodness. And I became a chiropractor. So, out of college, I went right to chiropractic school. So I graduated when I was 26, and very naive, hey, start your own business. What? So it's been a long
Really?
haul. And I'm just happy to say I've kind of come full circle back to what I love, which is helping people individually chiropractic. Years ago, I had a big clinic, a medical doctor, a PA, physical therapist, 10 employees, and I learned a lot, but I realized I was leaving what I really loved to do because I was managing and doing all these things. So over the years, and definitely
Mm,
COVID helped with that, I now practice out of my home. I have my own office, my own entrance, and now I have a patient base because I've been in my town now for 15 years, so or 16 years. I don't have to market anymore. I don't have to do that. So they love coming. I love commuting down the hall. So it's been great. And with the evolution of Hunter Holistics, our CBD company, I've always wanted and kind of tinkered with things, other stuff I could give patients to help them. And very honestly, things I could give to people I may never see, and reach out across the country, et cetera. And that's where we came up with the topical CBD. And it was really fun coming up with my own formula and working with the lab. And in there, I started my podcast because I like to be a light in the world. I like to be motivating because
mhm.
that's what gets me going. So I did that as well. And that just translated into the book. So yes, I usually have my iron in
Wow.
a lot of fires, but it keeps me busy, makes me happy.
So let's take a step back because from a young age you were really taken by this, by being a chiropractor,
Yes.
which is what you practice, which is fantastic because I don't think a lot of people have that experience where they get to live something and say, "Wow, that's something that I want to do for the rest of my life." So that's for
Yeah.
starters, that's great.
Thank you. Very blessed for sure.
And then for you to now want to start a business, how long have you been in business for with the Hunter Holistics?
It's been about 2 years.
Okay. Was there something that you didn't see in your practice, in your trade, that made you want to go into business? Was there something that was missing there that made you say, like, oh, I think I can have a solution here that I'm not seeing currently?
Right. I used a lot of different products over the years made by other people, and they were good. I'm just always wanting to build a better mousetrap. And when I started
Mm.
using CBD topically, it was incredible for just my usual aches and pains. And I started using it on
Mm.
patients, and I thought, okay, so I read the label, I contacted the manufacturer, and they
Yeah.
said, well, sure, we'll formulate anything you want. And then we came up with my formula. So it was definitely to fill that niche of something I knew because it was my product, it would help people.
Yeah.
And I'm not old, but I'm not young, so thinking of the future, this is something I could do where maybe later on I won't be able to practice chiropractic because it is a lot of physical.
Oh, I see. Right. Is there a lot of stigma around CBD products? Because I know I was looking into hemp, and I think that in some states in the US, like it's outlawed because of its properties. I don't.
Right. Yeah, it's been such a journey with Hunter Holistics and learning about the climate of CBD because I live in Southern California. It is so, as I say, hippity dippity in all the good ways. It's normal to be like, who's your chiropractor? Who's your acupuncturist? Who's
Mm,
your spiritual, teacher?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so CBD, even THC, which is legal here now in California, it's very commonplace.
yeah.
But when you start to get out of California, it's very bizarre. Now, CBD is actually the non-hallucinogenic part of the marijuana plant. There's lots of parts like that, but that part has all the
Hmm.
great properties, but there's no getting high, nothing like that. But it does wonders for the body. Interesting, you can't sell it on Amazon. You can't
Oh,
sell
wow.
real CBD on Amazon. So that was kind of a blow to me because I didn't know that jumping into this. So
Okay.
that really limited where I could sell because that's really what I wanted to do. So every once in a while, even in California, I play a lot of pickleball. And a friend of mine who's also a patient, I was like, hey, her knee was hurting, and I happened to have some in my bag. I said, let me put it on you. She said, oh, no, no, I don't do that stuff. And I'm like, it's not
Wow.
like that. You don't get high. But it's very infrequent in California. Other
Okay.
states differently. But yes, the laws are different in states, even though this is not a psychogenic effect. So yeah.
What are like the specific properties, well, uses that you use it for? Is
For
it,
CBD,
yeah.
it helps with inflammation. It's anti-inflammatory. It helps with the endocannabinoid system in the body, which is basically the body's self-regulation system. So pain, stiffness. I mean, people take it orally, and that can help with digestion,
Wow.
sleeping, just calming down, relaxing. I've taken CBD oil myself, and it really does work. But
Hmm.
as far as topically, if you have a bruise, because I tend to move pretty fast around my house and I hit things, if you get that on a bruise right away, it takes the sting of the pain away. I've even had it help with sunburn. So, really, for me, looking at a clinical standpoint, I was looking at the anti inflammatory properties,
Hmm.
stiffness, anti stiffness properties, and it really works great with muscles and joints.
Interesting. Yeah, because my mother, she's actually just a recently retired nurse,
Oh, wow.
and she's conservative, and
Right.
but even in the ER, which is where she was positioned, she
Wow.
said, yeah, there's a lot of that CBD, a lot of even marijuana in general, for depending what the case is, but it's
Sure.
being accepted more and more into the medical field. But I guess it depends on which state and which country, of course, right?
Right. But especially I guess from my standpoint, with CBD, because it doesn't have the
Yeah.
psychoactive effects. In fact, I found when I started, and I didn't know before, you have to get this tested. So every batch we do, we have to send to a lab to get tested
Hmm.
just in case. It has to have, I think it's 0.3% or 0.03% of THC or less, because anything past that, you can actually fail a drug test. And ours always comes up
Right.
clean because it is. But it's interesting because I have to pay for that to get it done every batch. So you
Wow.
have physical proof. And on our website, you can actually go to those lab results
Yeah.
and it'll show per batch what it is, because I have police officers who use it, firefighters, people who do get tested. And you want to make sure you give them a product that's going to work, first of all, and two, not get them in trouble, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and how long did it take to be able to figure all of these things out and get it from the idea to, production and supply chain and
I think the idea came pretty quickly because I had been tinkering, like I said, with other topical creams, not of CBD, but different things over the years. So I already kind of knew. So maybe from idea to physical product was 6 months. It really wasn't long.
okay,
And working with the lab, like I told you before, that was my favorite part
right.
because, I also wanted to add in synergistic essential oils that could also help with the
Mm.
inflammation and stiffness. Lavender oil, cinnamon bark oil, ginger oil. So it was interesting when we were formulating it, different percentages of the oil either make it smell terrible or make it smell amazing. So, we would get this big package in and it would have all these different ones with this is 10%, this is 20%, blah, 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 and smell them. And, we'd do like a call like this, we'd FaceTime so we could go through it and tell the lab. So that was the funnest part. The other stuff, literally, it was die by fire, literally threw myself into the frying pan. Like I said, I didn't know I couldn't sell on Amazon. And the other thing was procuring a credit card processor for my online orders. Regular Square, PayPal, stuff like that, they will not touch CBD,
Oh, wow.
which
Okay.
I did not know.
Yeah.
I'd love to say if I knew these things, maybe I wouldn't have gone forward with it, but we all know that's not how life goes, right?
No, not
No
at all.
regrets, right?
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
but I had to get this credit card processor that
Yeah.
charges more because
Mm.
they see it as a risk. Actually, the government
Oh, they see it as a
classify,
risk.
yeah,
Okay.
they classify CBD along with smoking, cigarettes, and pornography.
But in terms of like why? In case that there is like traces of THC in it?
But there's not. I don't know. I don't know. I was literally blown away, as you can imagine, being a business owner. There was a lot of dark days because I would be, we have our product, people are loving it, it's
Mhm.
working. I'm like, not just the owner, I'm a member, right? I mean, it works for
Yeah.
me, it's great. And then I would hit these roadblocks, and it really goes back to, you have to remember why you started it, and kind of meet every challenge head on, because there's going to be challenges, and in this case, that I didn't even think of.
Mhm. We got a question. Where can I get Dr. Cathy's products? Link.
You can get it at shophunterholistics.com.
Shop Hunters. Well, I'll put this stuff in the comments below. But
Yeah,
Shop Hunters,
I'll write it for you.
perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and as of right now, I cannot ship out of the country because of regulations. But in the United States, I can ship.
Um, so this and who would this be like specially used for? Is it for an older crowd? Is it for really anyone, athletes, people
Name it.
who have okay.
Anyone that has pain and stiffness, literally, muscle, joint. I'm a nerd by nature. So, like I said, I've tested on things like poison oak. That's not a claim. That's just an anecdotal, but literally it calmed down poison oak for me, the itching, the stinging, as long as there's not open skin. You don't want that in your open skin.
Yeah.
Um, Low back pain, neck pain, knee pain. My husband has a bad knee and we're working on it. But for him, he lives in the stuff. He always keeps one in his work truck because he's in construction and he's getting in and out of the car all day long, the truck. So he has that. So really, I have, very young people. They're not even athletes, just life. And then I have people like myself who are real active. I have higher end athletes, Ironmen, things like that, using it. And then just, I have a lot of older patients and
Mhm.
they don't want to take drugs. They don't want to take another pill. So
Yeah.
this is a natural relief for them.
Absolutely. Why an ointment and not, or like a topical and not a digestive?
Because that goes to a whole other
Oh, okay.
classification.
Complicated.
And once I found out, because I have used oral, I still use oral CBD, and it's great. Um, yeah, I didn't want to touch that. But also, too, just like an aspirin, if you take an aspirin, your body has to digest it, then it has to go where the problem is. This literally, I have one of my products. This is one of my roll ons. You just put it right on, you
Wow.
know? Um, so it's more targeted, if you will.
Okay. Does CBD work for intestinal issues, SIBO and Crohn's?
That's a good question. That would be oral CBD. I have heard people say it helps, but again, you got to be careful too with claims. Anecdotally, I do have a few patients with IBS, more IBS, not Crohn's, and they say it helps, but it's really individual.
Okay, interesting. I want to know, what about your book, 5 Degrees to Your Future? Let's talk about that.
Well, that has been another challenge for me, a good challenge. And I feel like I've been writing this book for 30 years, in different ways and different iterations. And when I started my podcast, it's really more motivating. I do get into health topics, but kind of a little bit of both motivation and health topics. And I thought, oh my God. And it was during COVID. I thought, either you write this book or just drop it, just forget about it,
Yeah, yeah.
And I sat my butt down and I wrote the book. And that's been quite a learning process because I'm self publishing on Amazon.
Okay.
So, for someone who hasn't done it before, whoo, it's been interesting. I even designed my own cover on Canva, which was, you gotta love YouTube, watching YouTube and figuring things
Mm,
out. So we ordered two proofs and just found little mistakes. And my niece edited the book for me. She's a writer. She's
wow.
amazing.
Okay.
And she says to me, Aunt Kathy, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. And
Yeah.
so I just got the second proof. And so, Luis, after this phone call, I'm going to hit publish and it will be a
Wow.
live link. Yes. So this is monumental today.
Wow, that's excellent. Wow. So
Thank
this
you.
was this was a 30-year project in your head, and finally the last couple of years you really hammered it down. What is the topic? Why were you, I mean, 30 years in the running? You that must be a story.
Yeah, well, I have learned through my practice that helping people isn't just by the modality, and for me it's chiropractic. It's about the energy, it's about talking to them, it's about really connecting with people. And I've always wanted to walk the walk, talk the talk. I don't like when people don't do that. And it's not that difficult for me because I love natural health. I love being active, getting excited about things. And it's been so much fun helping patients and friends do that, get excited about life. I mean, we got one life, and we all get knocked down and our paths get all over the place. And so when I started the podcast, the 5 degrees to your future, it's all about the path is never straight. You have zigzags, you go 5 degrees this way, 5 degrees that way, but you just got to keep coming on path. And if you have a goal, you can always reset your course. And so what I did in the book was I basically shared my life's experiences
Hmm.
and talked about things in my life that, got me all whatever on the path and during the path and all that. And then came up just with a basic kind of formula that you can use in your own life. So I'm just really excited. It's very unnerving, especially to write personally. And you
Hmm.
think, oh gosh, I feel like becoming a doctor was easier than writing this book.
That's funny. Well, I think because it's so connected to your story,
Right.
and
And
being able,
judgment,
yeah,
what are people going to think? And I never wrote this book thinking, oh gosh, now I'm going to get rich off a book. I don't think like that. But I know it's another vehicle to help people. And
yeah.
it's just a stepping stone to see what the heck else is going to come.
I might take a step back here for a second, but I find this interesting because I spoke to Fortune today, and he also wants to be an author, but he has a question. How
Yes.
do I know if my body is out of balance if I have no chronic pain? I'm an athlete who works out 6 to 7 days a week, but I've never seen a chiropractor before. Wondering if I should see one just to so I can see what I can learn about my body.
I would say definitely. I kind of laugh when I call myself an athlete, but I guess I am, just because I've never been like, professional or things like that. But you may not have pain, and literally you are out of alignment. Pain is like the
Mm,
last thing your body
mm,
does to signal, hey, something's going on.
yeah,
And if you don't have pain, I mean, think just about cancers. You could have cancer going on and sometimes you have no pain, but there's stuff going on. So
yeah.
if you can find a good chiropractor, someone who really knows, I mean, in
Mm,
general, they should, but
yeah,
someone just to check your body. And I'll tell you, I have a lot of people now who come once a month, once every 2 months. I call it maintenance. They just come to get their
mm,
spines tuned up, get everything in alignment, and they're really not in pain, but they understand performance. And I'm not even talking athletes, we're
yeah,
talking everyday people, but
yeah.
they know how their body acts. And the nervous system
Mm,
controls everything. So
yeah.
it's not just how well you're going to perform as an athlete, sleeping, your mind not being crazy, stress, you got to handle your stress. That can throw your body off, digestion, et cetera, et cetera. So it's fun for me now, being an older chiropractor, to have so many people that kind of got it. And it's not about me, it's about them. I want them to do their best.
Yeah.
So I would say absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I heard once that when you're dehydrated, when you feel like you need, sorry, when you feel like you're thirsty, it's actually your body indicating that you're dehydrated. So you would
Right.
actually keep hydrated and not get to that point where you're like, oh, I'm thirsty because your body's actually dehydrated. So
Yeah.
it's the same concept. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and he says, what's a piece of advice you would give to someone who wants to write their first book? So there you go. That's the author, please.
Well, because it's been a long haul. I actually followed this gentleman for the longest time, and it's Self Publishing School. You can look it up online and you can buy his books, his courses, but he wrote this one book called Published, and that is what I used. It's literally a 30-day or 60-day, like, get your book done. Just the basic processes. And I'm sure other people talk, there's many ways to skin a cat, right? But it starts with a mind map, and you just like bleh, throw everything on the paper, and then he walks you through the steps. Then you take the mind map and put it into an outline, and then you set a time. I mean, it was really
Wow.
hard. So you write every day. If you're really not feeling it, don't write. You have to, but again, timelines are so important with yourself, because especially writing your own book, who's watching you, right?
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Your boss isn't over you saying you didn't do that.
Hmm.
So that I can't speak more highly about the self-publishing school and Published. And they're fantastic people. I mean, it's been probably 10 years plus I've been following them. And I did write up in my book thanking them. So I can't wait to send them my book and say thank you so much.
That's amazing. Wow. It's just amazing how many resources are out there.
So many.
And just like you, I'm pretty sure they started this just to help other people get their
Right.
books out and not necessarily make money, which is excellent because we shouldn't actually see that as a bad thing. But
Yeah.
there's just so many things out there to help people really get their voice, um, which is what I also want to speak about because you've been working so long to get this book out. I mean, what are the five things that in the book that really you can just kind of give a general overview for those who are listening?
Well, they're the five pillars. And I'm going to leave that over here because I think it's more important some of the things I talk about in the book.
Mm,
And they're different things that I show how you use those five pillars to get through. Like one
okay.
chapter I just have on running
Okay.
and about my experience, a little bit of what I just told you, how I
Mm,
was this runner, I was a high
yeah.
performing runner, I get hurt, and all these things. And one of my favorite chapters in my book is my book about being AF or alcohol free.
Okay.
And not that I was a drunk, laying in the gutter, but up until now, it'll be 4 years in May. I drank socially. I was actually the wine person. I had my own winery with friends. I knew all about wine. We did wine vacations, wine cruises, all this stuff. And a girlfriend of mine, and this is in the book, she came to me during COVID and she said, "Oh my gosh, I need like a break from drinking." Everybody was losing their mind. They didn't know what to do. And she came across another resource. They're called 1 Year No Beer, and they're out of England, and they're the cutest people ever because I love their accents. But they were all about just giving alcohol a break and seeing what happens with your body. And
Hmm.
so their tagline is uh, something change your relationship with alcohol and watch your world change. And the best part about them, I mean, at first I didn't want to do it. Again, not like I was, in the corner drinking, but it was part of my adult life.
Yeah.
And so they
It's
just
your choice.
gave you, yeah, it gave you information. And so I did like a free 5-day trial, just to see. And it appealed to my nerdy mind, even though as a doctor, I knew these things,
Hmm.
but it just hit me right at the right time. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we did a 90-day challenge. My friend made it about 30 days and she went back and no judgment. And after about 60 days, I remember my husband and I were having dinner and I was having like a non alcoholic beer just for fun. And he looked at me and he says, "You're never going to drink again." I go, "No." And that was it. And that was it. And
Wow.
even for me, I was never heavy, but middle age is kind of rough on women, hormones. I gained like 10 pounds. I never had anything around my belly. You think, oh God, perimenopause, whatever. It's terrible, ladies. You all know. And no, it was just inflammation, is what it was. So
Wow.
within a month, I lost 10 pounds. I changed nothing else. And then I started thinking, okay, that's gross. Like, what else is
Yeah.
going on that I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
feel? And, as far as running, I definitely have taken more of a casual approach to running as I get older because it's fun and I love to teach people how to run and get them into races. But I'm running faster now than in my 20s, and I'm 53.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I really like that you highlighted that the pillars is one thing, but through an experience, which is the one of the concepts of this group is to get 30 minutes of movement in per day. And it's not the 30 minutes in and of itself that is the most important thing. I mean, yes, it's for your health and it's but it's everything that comes with it
Yeah.
that I have experienced because when you dive in deep enough into something that you're willing to commit, I mean, whether it's a musical instrument or it's physical activity, it all kind of comes back to this underlying fundamental kind of spiritual, I don't know,
Yeah.
connectiveness that you can really talk about discipline and motivation
Right.
and all of these big words and connectiveness to like who you are and how you think and becoming aware of all those things. And I think that's really interesting that through running you're able to speak about certain things and then you get probably more in detail. And I'd like to read the book, but
Well, thank you.
to the pillars, but it's interesting how you kind of connect it to a life experience and then talk through that. But I
Right.
guarantee that there's something that most anyone can definitely connect.
Yeah, and I hope so. And I've had now a lot of experience talking to people. Funny enough, like when I started college, I was so shy. Oh my God, like to talk to a stranger, I would rather die. And I started becoming a server, waiting tables. And I thought I was going to die, like talk to these strangers, but that helped me, come out. And then through my practice, there's nothing like that pressure of meeting someone not only who's a stranger, but who's in pain.
Yeah.
And chiropractic is not just a science, it's an art. You don't just become a great chiropractor in a year. I
Mhm.
always say to my patients now, I'm so glad you get me now and not on my first year.
Right.
But talking to them and now I've been very fortunate in this town. I still have patients who saw me day one here, and to watch them grow. And when we talk, and I knew there was just something more. And I love metaphysics, spirituality, getting into the meaning of life, all that. And you said it's about connection, but connection for yourself. And
Hmm.
for sure, like you start, and that's part of what I talk in the 5 pillars, is when you actually start on one path and you start to accomplish goals, literally your perspective just opens up, like you said, and it's magical. And all of a sudden you start thinking of things you never maybe would have ever thought of.
Yeah.
And to me it's like a grand adventure. And I feel like we should all have this grand adventure, but we're usually the one blocking it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The only thing that gets in your way is you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's we were just talking about this a couple weeks ago, is that the impression that you have of a particular whatever event in your life or an activity or anything, it doesn't mean anything. It's just you giving it that significance or that
Right.
meaning.
Yeah.
um, and to someone that might not be a big thing, and for you it might be, but it's just kind of based on perspective. And it's funny how you start mentioning that, okay, well, I stopped drinking and I saw all of these effects. Well, what else is happening? And for me, it was quite something similar. I mean, I used to drink when I was young, and I got into problems, troubles, so I had
Sure.
to learn the hard way. But
Right.
as of recently, I mean, the being drinking, I don't need it to be social, and I think it's kind of you
Right.
being kind of connected to yourself and realizing that you are fine as you.
Right.
And if it can enhance something, great. But
Right.
if it really is kind of an outlet for something, then you need to revisit. But even just taking like on a small, um, just adventurous, curious kind of like, I wonder what happens if I do this or don't do that.
Right, right. And I try not to have regrets and look backwards, but I thought, oh my God, can you imagine if I like stopped doing it in my 20s? But it doesn't matter. All you
Yeah,
have is today, right?
yeah.
And I'm reading this great book. It's called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And he talks
Michael
about,
Singer, yeah.
yeah, oh my God, it's amazing. He says, stop imposing your garbage on the moment because it's just the
Mm,
moment. And if what you have to do is accept reality as it's looking at you,
yeah,
because if you don't accept it and you throw all your garbage on top,
yeah,
you can never change the future. You're stuck
yeah.
in those cycles. And we
Right.
all get there, but for sure, like my girlfriend hasn't drank in, she's a little bit older than me, like 30 years. She said there is nothing like the clarity you regain in your mind. And that's even if you're not drinking every day. It does start to affect brain chemistry. I mean,
Mm,
they've shown this
yeah,
in studies. But when you stop and your brain doesn't have that, it starts to rewire and it starts, I like to think all the neurons are just like, yay, what are we doing now?
mm,
And it's been such a fun trip. And I think I'm so proud too. My niece who edited the book, she just turned 30 a couple weeks ago. 6 months after I stopped drinking, she stopped drinking. And I always say to her, oh my God, you're so smart. You're like so ahead
right.
of the curve. But watching her life has been just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. And I
Yeah.
think just to go back on that present feeling, I heard once that uh, it's Sunday night and you're starting to think about, oh, I got to do this tomorrow and it's Monday and I don't know how many responsibilities. It's like, wait a minute, you're lying in your bed. It's not
Right.
Monday. It's not
Right.
Monday morning. It's
Yeah.
time to go to bed. Why are you putting all of these things into your mind? Let it go.
We
In my
just get in our own way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's like all of us, we tend to fabricate all these scenarios that
Hmm.
don't even exist
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they haven't happened.
yeah.
And it is pretty interesting the more you clear your mind. And you can do it with meditation, running, all these things. But
Hmm.
when you don't have a chemical affecting you like that, the other things are more, they enhance more
Yeah,
because they can help the body even more. And that clarity, and I'm human. Every once in a while, I get a little and I just stop. And
mhm,
okay, what is that? Identify it. Let that energy come up and release it, because if you stuff it down, it's just another blockage. And until you get rid of those blockages within yourself, you can't be the best person you can be. and
yeah,
and, and what I understood is that's why we're here.
yeah.
you know
Well, the blockage is cancer ultimately, which
right.
is, yeah, and that's why I really I'm trying to take different angles, but for this group, it's more, well, if you can commit to doing 30 minutes of movement, then what else can you do? And it's like taking control of your life, saying, oh, if I
Yeah.
can do that, then I can do this. And it's like being conscious of daily decisions and choices. And if I stop drinking, if I do exercise, then what else can I do? And what will that look like in 30 years from now?
Right.
Like the rewiring of neuropathological, the
Yeah.
neurons and synapses. It's like, wow, this it's we have a lot of power, at our hands.
We have all the power.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And you're taught when you're a kid, it's your parents, and yes, a lot of those things are true, and then you grow up and it's school and a job and all these constraints. But even within all those realms, the power has always been within you.
Mhm.
And again, I always say, do you want to, what kind of life do you want to live? Like, I mean, there's lots of beliefs, but in what I know, this is the only one I got here
Yeah,
with this body.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I don't know, it's funny too. Like, turning 50 really didn't bother me because I felt great, and I tell my niece, like, my brain, I feel like I'm, I don't know, like 20, 22, with more experience, of course, and not so naive. But yeah, it's like, okay, what's next?
That's
Because
fantastic.
I'd like to think I live 50 more years, but that may not happen. So, like, TikTok, what are we doing? And again, not to say you always have to be go, 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 go. I don't mean it like
Right.
that, but how you want to live your life, and the moving 30 minutes a day. In my podcast, I talked about sitting is the new smoking. That was one of my topics.
Okay.
And
Talk to
it's
us about
so
that.
true. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh. So sitting is in the smoking. There's so many studies that when you sit, it's not just your metabolism, but literally your physical structure changes in not a good way. Everything starts to come in. You lose your lung volume because
Mm,
literally your rib cages are coming in of itself. And
yeah.
you're usually staring at a screen. So now you've got all the radiation and all this stuff. And with people getting upright desks, fantastic. I've seen the ones with treadmills with the desk, love it.
Wow.
But literally, people are contributing to their own demise by sitting all day, you
Yeah.
know
Right. I think, yeah, just being able to just talking about it makes me want to put up my chest
Wait,
and
wait, let me get up. Okay.
right, because it's true. I really found that a lot of my demeanor, and maybe not overnight, but a lot of my perspective has changed just by being able to stand up straight and then realizing that I got to walk properly and posture my hips in the right way, and it just kind of connects you, because the way I see it is, if I stand up straight and I walk correctly and I let my shoulders down, I'm just becoming more energy efficient, and then it allows
Yes.
me to focus on other things. And it's kind of like a positive feedback loop that I find. It started from a small little correction, and
That's
it
so good. And that's the thing, 5 degrees, right? You think, well, let me just do this. So let me just move 30 minutes a
Right.
day. And all of a sudden, all these other possibilities come up. And of course, it's great when you actually have feedback, positive feedback from what you're doing.
Mm,
Sometimes that's hard when you're trying to do something, you kind of get negative stuff. But when you get the positive stuff, that's like the cookies, right? You're like, oh, okay, that's good. I want more of that. I want to do that. So
right.
it's huge. I mean, I've had patients coming in for years, and you know, sometimes they complain about the same things, and I'll say, "Did you get a stand desk yet?" They,
Yeah.
well, they're expensive. I said, "Take a piece of plywood, put
Yeah.
it on some casters." I don't know. I'm not. That's my husband. He's in construction, but get up. Just start there. Or as people get older, they start the old adage, you if you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm,
I have a patient, she's turning 91 next week, and
wow.
she still drives. She's flipping amazing. She knows her iPhone more than I do, right? And she's just, oh, and I'm gaining weight and my back. I'm like, okay, when are you walking? She's like, uh
Hmm.
I go, she lives in a cul-de-sac. I said, okay, once a day, walk around the cul-de-sac. I mean, that's like nothing, right?
Yeah.
Just start with that. Once you get comfortable, do it twice,
Yeah.
do it 3 times. And that goes back to consistency and cumulative effects.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah. There's no way around it.
There's no,
There's no way around it.
you
We have
can take Ozempic, but
yeah.
you still have to learn how to take care of your body.
What is one or two things that surprised you when you started your own business? Did you feel prepared for it?
Um, well, that's a two-phase answer. The first business was my chiropractic business.
Right.
And, from my experience, I loved school. I got into it. I actually graduated 3 months early and did my internship out in California. I mean, I was all in. And I'm like, I got this. You have a few business courses. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was an economics major at undergrad. So, yeah, I got this. And then you start. So, what surprised me was how difficult it was to actually physically get patients or clients.
Hmm.
Because also I was young and I was inexperienced. Why would they see me?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the first one that surprised me. And how much it tests your confidence and how much it tests your tenacity, you know?
Wow.
Um, and like when I was graduating, even though I wanted my own practice, the way the school made you think, all the schools, oh, yeah, you can just get a job with another doctor. So I'm sending out my resumes, and I'll never forget this one guy goes, wow, you got, all this interning and all this stuff before you graduated. Great, great, great. So what do you want? And I'm like, a job. And he couldn't stop laughing. And he said, so wait, I'm going to pay you to work on my patients that I brought in this office. He's like, yeah, if you want to rent a room, I'll take 50% of what you bring in. And that was the standard. So for, let's see,
Whoa.
6 years, that's what I did. I rented a room and they took 50% of everything I brought in. That was my rent. So, I had like a good month. There goes 50%,
Yeah.
because to have the consistency to actually have an office and a lease and to be able to pay rent, I didn't have the consistency.
Yeah.
Now, as far as Hunter Holistics, I think the biggest thing that surprised me was all the regulations that I didn't know
Mm.
about or even think about, and how difficult it really was to sell things online that wasn't Amazon. Those were shockers for me.
Wow. That's is do you feel like you needed to sell when you were having to get your clients and when you were renting the room? That's
Oh,
interesting.
sure, because
I didn't know.
they weren't providing patients for me. I
Yeah.
had to get them.
Right.
So, I mean, oh gosh, I mean, I've done booths at farmers markets. I've
I'm a
literally,
doctor, chiropractor trying to
yeah,
come
like
to.
literally, and that's the easier ones. I literally hired a coach way back then, and he told me to go door to door. And can you believe I did? I had letters, and I actually, I think I went to 500 homes. I'm not kidding, because
Wow.
when you don't have patience, you have time. So
Yeah.
I went to 500 homes, and I just chalk it up to it was a different time. Now I'd probably be shot or something like that, right? Or they call the cops. But
Yeah.
it was, an earlier time. And I think I was so young, they probably felt bad for me. And I actually got one patient out of that. And if you think about it, that's a pretty good record. So, one out of 500, think about leads and marketing. That's pretty good. But I mean,
Yeah.
that took me a few weeks. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was really hard. And then I would get them in and be like, you know, I'm not the best adjuster. I'm like blah blah blah. It's so much fun to be older and actually have
Mm,
experience and knowledge in your brain because you can
yeah.
you even in a situation you don't know, you can think and talk. When you're younger,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, nervous system controls the body.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I could definitely imagine a lot of those experiences. I mean, being able to go door to door gave you a lot of what you need today. I mean, to keep venturing off on different businesses and ventures and stuff like that. I mean, those are some like key assets that you have.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I always say, if you look back at your own life, number one, it always works out. It's never the way you thought, usually. You can have
Mm,
a goal, but again, the path to get there. But two, you realize everything that's happened needed to happen to get you to here.
yeah.
And I'm sure people would argue with me, and that's fine. But I mean, look at your own life, right? For you
Yeah.
to be sitting here in this chair, if all those things, good and bad, didn't happen to you,
Absolutely.
how could you be ready?
I think the difference between me and let's say 5 years ago is I'm continuously being curious and jumping into different things, but now I'm just more aware of, oh, that's an opportunity. Let me seize it, or let me actually just ask another question
Right.
to see what it's about, and to let me guide me where I want to go. Because again, I mean, the whole idea of this group is, well, an underlying theme is to really take control of your decisions and your choices and be intentional
Yeah,
about it so that you can actually kind of design that life, because it's definitely possible. I mean, it may not be the way you imagined it, but being able to imagine, I want to live in that house, or I want to build that business, or I want to be in a relationship with that person, you got to
absolutely.
start somewhere.
No, that's fantastic. And I always think, can you imagine if they taught us this when we were little kids? Like, oh my God, that's
Constantly
why.
deconstructing everything.
Oh my God, forget it. I don't even want to know what we'd be doing. But
Yeah.
literally, like, it's been so fun with my niece because, I'm her aunt, not her mother,
Yeah.
but watching her because, like I said, she is so much more advanced, I feel, than I was at her age, just
Mm,
thinking in spirituality and just kind of like how life works. And
yeah.
it's so fun to see where she's going.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's just, and you have to also think too, sometimes the unknown is like scary, right?
Hmm.
But it's also fun because you think, oh gosh, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. But it's you got to trust, and you have to trust yourself first of all.
Yeah. Wow. That for me was huge last year.
Wow.
Someone told me, well, it was in the 1%. Ryan told me, he said, I don't think you trust yourself. That's what you keep playing in your head. And I was like, wow, how do you even, I didn't even think about that. And it's absolutely true. I constantly keep doubting my decisions and my choices and my own intuition. And it's really difficult to kind of look at that from like a meta point of view and saying, yeah, I don't trust myself. That's crazy. I don't want that. How do I do it when it's just constantly and it's, well, if you keep pushing yourself, then you're always kind of testing it. And I think that's
Right.
kind of in and of itself like a great opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. And also learning as you go. Some people don't, because it's scary. It's scary to change. It's scary to,
Mm,
bob and weave and kind of take hits on the chin. But that's part of life. And again, you want to be stagnant, or do you want to be curious and have this great life?
we got a question here. Who are some of the people you look up to in business? That's a good question.
That's a very good question.
I
Uh,
yeah.
One would be a mutual. of ours, Ryan Moran,
Yeah.
um, of capitalism.com. Uh, Even though he's younger than me, I find it amazing that the things he has done. There's a few chiropractors in my field that, you guys wouldn't know, but they really help shape me and show me what was possible. And in particular, I used to rent a room from a doctor when I lived in San Diego years ago. And he used to say to me, I wish you could see what I see, meaning me, because I didn't have the confidence. And I still, I can hear his voice, I still remember that. So I really looked up to him.
Mm.
Um,
It's important.
I tend to stay out of the news. I tend to put myself in a little bit of a Pollyanna bubble because I'm helping people. I don't like to get weighed down. I'm not a total head in the sand, but I really shy away from that. So I probably don't follow traditional business people. But like when I found Ryan, I was like, this dude's talking my talk, this is where I'm at. And really anyone that's a self-starter, I just love it. It just makes me so happy. And honestly,
Yeah.
I look up to my husband. I met him later in life. I was married before. That's in the book. And I met my husband Larry when I was 47. I thought, okay, I'm done, it's
Wow.
cool. I'm gonna be single. I can take care of myself. I always did. And he popped into my life and literally talk about someone who is constantly tinkering and thinking and
Wow.
self-made and it's not always about the money, you
No,
know. Money's great, of course, like,
absolutely.
but it's not all about that. And I always say he's with his clients. He's mainly plumbing and electrician, kind of like I am with my patients. Like he actually cares.
Hmm.
He'll be like, "Oh, they invited me over for tea, and the lady spoke Russian, and I was using Google Translate." And he's just always happy
Yeah.
with challenges we've all had.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really have looked up to him. It's
Wow.
been such an amazing force.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, for me, it's I mean, money is, I love it, but it's the pursuit and I constantly need like a project to work to. I think that's why I'm kind of in my most fun state, because it's like I want to work up to get where I need to be, and it's sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes you don't like it, sometimes you don't even want to do it. You're like, why am I doing this? And then you'll probably, I don't know, go to bed and then take a shower or something, and then you'll, sometimes it just takes a day or something, an hour or a week or whatever, or like a phase in life, but you realize why you're doing it. And I think it's, yeah, it's not really about the money. It is, but it's not.
Right. Yeah.
I want to know a little bit about what do you talk in your podcast, because it's,
It's mainly motivation, inspiration, but of the last year, I'm doing also things on health, like the one I told you. Smoking is the new sitting.
yeah.
Um, Upcoming, I'm going to be doing one on vitamin D. But I've done a lot of stuff on health, and they're not necessarily controversial subjects. I tend to kind of stay neutral, even though I have my own views on things, just because I want to appeal to a larger audience and help them.
Mhm.
Some nutrition. I've done a lot of stuff on intermittent fasting and time restricted eating. That's what my husband and I do, and it's been. I mean, my husband lost 40 pounds. It was crazy, and I didn't think he was heavy. So stuff like that. So kind of a mix between that inspiration, motivation, and then health.
Yeah. Well, I think it kind of stems from, again, choices and decisions. I mean, you can decide to um, sit in and order food, or not do exercise, or take an extra beer. I'm not too much of a beer drink anymore. And it's like it's a choice,
It's
and
a
I
choice.
think a cumulative over time you really start to see. And I think by doing these types of things, it's really interesting. And I think it comes back to, I don't know, lifestyle choices. Would you call that?
Yeah, yeah. This morning we've now been running on Wednesday mornings. My girlfriend, who actually wrote the intro to my book, I hired her when she was 21 in my office as front desk physical therapy assistant. And she's just a love. And right away, we started forming this friendship. And I'm 14 years older than her. And we started playing soccer together. And then she had never really run long distances. And we started running long distances, and we've done marathons, we've done halves. We've Our new thing now is trail running. So, this morning, even though I felt great, I was a little tired. Um, get up. I have a date with her. I met her at 6:55 this morning, which isn't even one of our early runs, and we ran the trails here in Southern California, and we're just starting to get our warmth, so it wasn't like freezing, and there's nobody out there, and everything's green, which will not stay for very long, and the wildflowers are just starting to come out. And her and I, she's a mother of three, she has a full-time job, she's married, she's busy, and that's like our connection time. That's my choice, and I would do it again and again, and that gives me energy, not just in the physical running, but my connection with her, and being out in nature. And you know it, like you said, it's about personal choice, and we all have days we don't want to do stuff, we all have days we don't feel great, whether it's physically or mentally, and you have to give yourself grace to kind of go through that. But again, if you have that goal in mind,
Yeah,
get back on that horse the next day.
yeah, yeah. I think just to touch back about what you said about age, I really, I think I mentioned in one of the lives that I had a Sunday and there was a skateboard. I'm like, I'm gonna skateboard, and I learned, but it's because this 10-year-old kid taught me. I could have been like, oh, what do like, I'm not gonna take lessons from a kid, and he's like, listen, do you want to learn? I'm like, okay, yeah, of course.
That's great.
Yeah, put your foot like this and do that, and with immediately. And he's like, there you go. And I said, you can learn anything from anyone at any time,
Anytime.
forget age.
Yeah.
Like, it's all about perspective, and someone has like a way to explain something sometimes. Like,
Right.
why do I like Ryan is because he has a way of putting, certain things that I might have listened to probably maybe 100 times. Back in the day, I
Right.
used to, no one has given me an advice, but maybe I just wasn't ready. And sometimes it's just the way
It's the
the,
time it hits you. Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny since you said that. So my husband is 63. Um, he just bought a one wheel. Do you know what that is?
No.
That's a big fat wheel in the center of a very heavy skateboard, and it's all
Oh,
electric.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he just bought one.
Okay.
Now, granted, he is a motorcyclist, mountain biker, off roader.
Okay.
But I never said no in our marriage, and I said, really, could you just not do a one wheel? And you know, I let it go because I would never want someone to tell me I couldn't do something. And we walked the dog the other night, my niece and I, and he's on his one wheel, and in 2 weeks he's been off roading it. He's been on the trails, like just crazy stuff. But his friends that are younger than him, that are my age, that he does motorcycles with and rides bikes, they call him low impact Larry because he's anything but. He's not
Low
low impact.
impact. Okay.
So
It-
he's 63,
okay. There you
you
go.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. I think you can do anything, and it doesn't surprise me that you said I'm 50. Well, at 50, I feel like I'm 20. It's like I'm not surprised. It really depends on, and that's one of the things that I find that is so interesting about being able to kind of hold yourself consistent, because if you're curious and you're enthusiastic, the last thing you want is your body to fail on you and
right.
not live out your heart's desire. That would be such a shame.
Yeah. Tragedy. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I talk about that in the book, and I talk about that on the podcast, is that, like we said, consistency and cumulative effects. You can never even have the positive feedback coming out if you're not consistent. Like I say to people, how often do you brush your teeth? They're like, well, duh, I brush twice a day. I say, can you imagine if you brush it once a month? Your
mm,
teeth would rot out, it would be
yeah,
terrible. And that goes for all these other things. And that's why I'm with you, convinced at any age you can really do. I'm looking at his one wheel, it's outside. I'm looking at it now. You can do whatever you want. I mean, yeah, maybe I can't
wow,
play for the WNBA. I get that. I don't really want to. But within constraints, you could do a lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. What a positive message. Um, your book, your podcast, just remind everyone and where we could
Oh,
potentially
thank
buy
you.
that. Yeah.
So the website is the 5 degrees, FIVE, degrees, plural.com. And that's where the podcast is on.
Okay.
Um, that's where the link to the book will be once I hit publish, Luis, after this, that will take you to Amazon. And right now I just have the paperback, but now I'll be working on the Kindle version, the ebook version, so that people can also purchase it that way. And my next step is I've made friends with, a lot of non-alcoholic bars and people who have their own drinks, and I'm going to be reaching out to them to go and do book signings for free, to
Wow.
get out there and meet them, and again, just see where it goes. So thank you so much. That's awesome. It's been fun. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Well, I'm super happy that you were here, that you stopped by, and that we had such great questions.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I definitely interested in hearing about your podcast. And then I'm super happy that you're gonna hit the publish button right after here to get that
Whew,
final.
yes. Yes. And you can find me on iTunes and Spotify, but for some reason if you put in 5 degrees to your future, it doesn't find it. But if you put in my name, Dr. Cathy Hunter, Cathy with the C, it'll come up. So,
Perfect. All right.
yeah.
Well, there we go. I don't want
Thank
to take more of
you.
your time. I just want to say thank you for stopping by. And again, this is part of the accountability group, like mini guest series. I guess I'm trying to make it a little bit official here. But yeah, we are heading into this is week 3. And we have another special guest coming in next week. But yes, I just want to say thank you again for taking the time. I learned a lot.
Oh,
Um, and then yeah, super excited to hear some of your podcasts, and then hopefully in the future read your book.
thank you so much, Luis. I had a ball. This was awesome. And, I'm with all of your group. Just do it, stay consistent. And like you said, you will reap the benefits and your life will be better. So thank you so much.
Perfect. All right, so there we go. Thank you everybody for stopping by, and yeah, keep doing your 30 minutes of movement, and then we'll see you on next Tuesday, which is our next live. So there you go. Thanks for
Very
stopping
cool.
by.
Thank
Have
you.